All right, welcome, grocers and people that support the grocer industry. I think we've got a few of us here, like Philip. So yeah, this is Shelf Life, the web series. We've gotten to a few of these so far. We're going to be talking about grants and finding grants, how to write a grant, and then getting into the Good Food Access grant. So. Thanks for joining every first Wednesday at 3 p.m. and they'll be recorded on the website. So you could watch it later if you missed something or just need to watch it again or share with a friend. That I work with RSDP, Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. We work in the state of Minnesota, Greater Minnesota. So we're out there in the communities. I'm in Northwest Central area, and we do work with sustainable food and ag systems, natural resources, community vitality. So working with grocery stores is something that Dr. Kathy Drager has been working on for the last 10 years, and this was one of the surveys here. 2020, we found some pretty startling results. The average store of a grocery is maybe not startling for you guys. But to show and try to keep funding like this Good Food Access for problems of infrastructure and aging infrastructure and stuff like that, this is kind of vital. Do these surveys and hear back every once in a while. So yeah, we've been working for the last 10 years, and then we just got a Good Food Access technical assistance part of that program. So that's what funds me in our work to do these web series and reach out and best help. And then this is where we're helping, or this is where everything is kind of located at the end of the day. So go to our RSDP Grocery Resource Center. This is our website. See the webinar series right there. You already did that, so you don't need to know, but that's where all the resources will end up also. So the recorded videos and all the PDFs that we share. So let's get to it. Third web series, show me the money. That famous line from Jerry Maguire. We got me and Jenny Lezer here. Um, let's get to it. So, what is a grant? A grant is an idea, supports a well-defined need or purpose, and it's all about trust. So, I've written, not to brag or anything, but I've written almost $1 million in grants over the last 10 years. So, I'd consider myself a decent grant writer. And yeah, so that's why I'm gonna be the talking about grant writing, and from my experience, there were a few I didn't get, and there was a bunch that we did too. So I'd say it's all about trust because if you think about a grant, it's a organization, someone with a lot of capital, a lot of funds, and they wanna see something good happen in the world, and it's basically up to you as the grant writer um, to kind of prove that you have the trust that you can handle that fund and you can do something with it and turn it around. And you've got a need. The grantor has a need too to get rid of their money. So you gotta kind of convince the grantor that your project is worthy. And stay true to your purpose, stay true to your need. Don't reach too far. Everybody in here need something, for their store, whether it be equipment or some problem that they're having. So I got these grant writing steps, and we're just going to be going through these. So first is finding a grant opportunity that matches your need, and then reading through the RFPs, or that's the request for proposals. Every grant should have something like that where they give the eligibility, see if you're actually eligible for that grant, and find the deadline. So know like when you need to kind of get everything in by. You also kind of gauge how long it is. Like if it's a really short grant, some of these grants you could write in a few hours, and then some might take a few weeks. So you could get a kind of a estimate of how long it's going to take to pull all this info together. Um, and then connect your need to the grants focus, and kind of like refine your idea. Like, what is the grants are actually trying to fund? What is my need? Is it going to fit? Can I make it fit? And then I always start with the budget because then you kind of know what you could actually get out of the grant, see if it's worth it. Okay, well, we're going to get $50,000 for this HVAC. I think that's important to get, and we could do that. And then reach out to your partners. So reach out to your collaborators and getting letters of support, and then writing the grants, editing, submitting. So We're going to go through these steps here, finding a grant. So we're going to go and see which grants are actually available for grocery stores. So we're going to go through these one by one here. And you could join listservs to get announcements so you don't miss a deadline. There's one that I'm going to share that we missed the deadline on. It was like it was due last week, and I think that was the refrigeration grant. But if we were on an announcement, we would have gotten that out maybe a little bit sooner. So that's why you got to join all the listservs about all the important grants. SUSTAG, that's MISA. That's the part of the U of M. MDA has newsletters, same with USDA. Foundation Directory, that's kind of more for nonprofit type grants, but they've got them all there. They've got all the foundations in that directory. So if you could get access to that somehow, that could be useful. I'm just going to hand it off to Jenny here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Lezer. I'm a grant administrator with the Minnesota Department of Ag. Zach and I are going to be sharing various resources for funding opportunities, but I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the funding at the MDA. Next slide. So first up, you're going to want to go visit our webpage. It's www.mda.state.mn.us. Towards the top in the dark blue ribbon, you'll see business development loans and grants. If you click on that, another ribbon will appear where you'll click on view all grants and funding. So this will bring you to the page that you see on this slide, and it lists all of our MDA grants. You can take a minute to browse through those to see if there's any that you think you might qualify for or be interested in. But there are two that I wanted to talk specifically about today. Next slide. So first is the Good Food Access Program, which most of you are probably aware of already. This program will be going through a name change and will soon be known as a Food Retail Improvement and Development Program. The grants will be called FRIDGE for short. We'll be making that change sometime over the summer. So the next time you apply for this program, you'll be wanting to look for that new name. So just keep that in mind. This program is designed to increase the availability of and access to affordable, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food for underserved communities in low and moderate income areas. It helps grocery stores and small food retailers make physical improvements and purchase equipment to stimulate sales of such foods. So you can request between $5,000 and $75,000, and there's no match required for this grant. I am the grant administrator for this program, so you can reach out to me if you have any questions. But we plan on releasing the next application in late 2025 or early 2026. We don't have a timeline nailed down on that quite yet. Next slide. If you're a retailer looking to do some processing of like meats, like for deli meat or produce, you may also be eligible for our meat, poultry, egg, and milk processing and value-added grant. I would recommend any retailers, especially like meat markets or places like that, who are looking for processing equipment specifically, to consider this application over the Good Food Access Program. It just might be a little bit better of a fit. Next slide. All right, so the process for MDA's grants goes a little bit like this. So first, the applicant will apply for the grant, and then once the application period closes, there will be a period of time that a panel of internal and external reviewers are going to evaluate and score the applications. After scoring them, the reviewers then meet to discuss the proposals and their scores, and they develop recommendations for funding. Some of our grant programs are extremely competitive and hard decisions have to be made. So just keep that in mind, and their recommendations are then shared with our Commissioner of Agriculture, and then he will make the final funding decisions. From there, we move to the pre-award phase, where we will complete any necessary pre-award risk assessments and get grantees set up to sign agreements with the state for their project. Once contracts are signed, grantees can start their projects, and then they are reimbursed for their expenses. Keep in mind that as a general rule with our grants, expenses must be incurred on or after the contract start date to be eligible for reimbursement. So you can't come to us with a project that you have already completed saying that you'd like to be reimbursed for it. It has to be a future project. And then one more thing worth noting is that grants are considered taxable income. All right, next slide. Okay, so once you find a grant that you're interested in applying for, you'll want to visit our website to learn about that program and access the request for proposal or the RFP. If you scroll to the bottom of those web pages under the section that says applying, that's where you'll find the link to the RFP, which contains all of the grant information, including everything from eligibility to timelines to application questions themselves. So you'll then apply using the online link provided on the website or in the RFP. There's also an online grant application guide if you're new to the online portal or if you have any problems or have questions about that. But you can also reach out to the grant administrator or to our grants team if you need help with that. Next slide. Here are some tips as you get started writing a grant for the MDA. Overall, it's just getting very familiar with what we have available on our grant webpage. There's a Q&A section about the RFP that can be extremely helpful with specific questions. That's going to be in the light gray banner that goes across towards the top of the webpage underneath the grant title. And then we also have a list of previous grantees that you can check out. And then, of course, familiarizing yourself with the RFP. Make sure that your project is eligible, that you have good cost estimates, and that you understand how points are awarded, which I'll come back to on the next slide. But lastly, start early, submit early to avoid any technical issues at the last minute. And note that there is a deadline for application questions, which is typically like the week prior to the application deadline. And this is just to ensure that we can share the information in our Q&A page for other applicants so that everyone has the same access to the same information. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is the evaluation profile that's in each RFP. This is how your application is going to be scored. There are different criteria sections and points awarded for each section. When writing your proposal, be sure that you read through each bullet point to see if your proposal addresses each thing. If some sections are worth more points, you might want to be a little extra detailed in those areas. Next slide. If you have any questions about our grants, you can always reach out to the grant administrator that's listed on the program website, or you can reach out to our grants team and we can either get you an answer or we can get you to the right person who can get you the answer. All right, that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, so we're going to go through at the end and we're going to look at, let's see if we go back here. We're going to look at the evaluations of some fake proposals. We changed names around, but we're going to get your input on how they did. So kind of show different grant applications and kind of what the evaluators are going to look at. So here's just a few other grants that are out there for grocery stores. Refrigeration emissions grants. This is through Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. They also have small loans with 0% interest. This is for grocery stores, nonprofits, other businesses that replace those HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons. And they do have specific requirements of what they're replacing. So you'd have to look up the eligibility there. We just missed this one, May 29th, but this one comes back in around. The maximum amount is 20,000, and the pool of funding for each round was 120,000. So you gotta think maybe this is really competitive, or it seems like their strategy is they do multiple rounds with this. So if 5 stores wrote it for 20,000, 6 stores, that would be all. Um, but yeah, there are some funds for and loans for emissions. There's a Promise Act grant. This is for not just grocery stores, but businesses. It was created by Minnesota legislature in 2023 to support small businesses and nonprofits that didn't receive state grants during the pandemic. So this is a great way to get to know your economic development center. We got them listed in the corner there with the numbers. So ours is 4. That's West Central Initiative. And another reason to get to know your economic development center is, and we got Philip on the call here for West Central, but sometimes they have grants, and that's great. Look at this grant right here that a store could have written for $3,000 to $25,000. It is for sustainability, equity, and civic engagement. And yeah, just encourage you to reach out to those centers, your center. Um, and yes, so yeah, Promise Act grant is not out right now, but we're waiting. So it might be out later this summer. Some other grants for elders and area agency on aging. So you could find your region, find your county, and then look to the left here, and then find your area agency. So ours is Dancing Sky in Otter Tail County. I actually helped a grocery store write one of these. The portals are not always easy, so sometimes you do need a little technical assistance. Even for the master grant writers over here, it's a sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge and difficult to get through some of these portals, and this was a challenging one. Um, but each one of these agencies should have something out there about grocery delivery for elders. So if you reach out to them, find them on Google, reach out to their contact person and ask, "Hey, what's coming out next year?" I was reading that they had some funds until 2027 around this. So, and just to give an idea, there was a grant that I helped give technical assistance that was about 8 or 9 thousand, and that seemed like that was the amount that they gave for grocery delivery. And I should say in Dancing Sky. So there's more federal grants. This is the other. So we got Good Food Access is, pretty much the best grant for Minnesota grocers. You should just keep on writing that one. You can get it multiple times. This is, I would say, the other best grant, the HFFI. So, this is America's Healthy Food Financing Initiative, and this is going from Rural Development USDA to reinvestment funds. And then these are the pools of funding that are available. So we have partnership program, technical assistance, investments and lending, and then we have your grants. So we've got one more slide on this. And that's the link up there, investinginfood.com, funding opportunities. The Fair Fund is out right now. You can send your funding inquiry form before August 4th. That's the other thing. Grants are pretty strict on their deadline. So if you miss, if it's August 5th, it's kind of over. So you got to get them in before those dates. And first step is logging in. So yeah, so most grants these days have portals, so you have to log in and go through all that, but it's worth it once you get in. I just did it yesterday just to go through and get through into the Fair Fund, and it wasn't too bad at all. It took like 5 minutes to set up an account. Fair Fund has grants for and funding also for technical assistance and loans. And then they have other pools of funding like those other gray boxes. There's planning grants if you're planning a new store or project. And then there's partnership grants that maybe someone like I would help write because that's a grant to provide more technical assistance. So they've got a bunch of funds and reinvestment funds. So I'd check them out. Here are some other grants through USDA. Not all of these are clear cut for a grocery store, but I don't know if you've heard of this term, food aggregation sites or food hubs or local food initiatives. If you're getting creative and you're starting to partner with more nonprofits and do that kind of work, this could be something for you. You could be partnering with multiple people. Sometimes the eligibility of these might not just be for a business. You might have to be a 501(c)(3), and then you could find a fiscal sponsor. But these in particular, the Business Development Grants, Co-op Development Grants, these are for businesses. And then there's this one, the middle one here, the Regional Food Business Center. So ours is the North Central. And so there should be a business builder grant out now, but they're still paused right now. So they don't know what's happening, but keep checking back with that. You could scan that QR code there to get all of them. And we're going to have a resource sheet that send out to everybody that signed up. And it's also going to be in our website with all these grants and all the ones we were mentioning. So if you're not writing stuff down, we'll have all the links for grocery grants there as well. So I don't know if Colby Abaz is with us. Yeah, here's Colby.
Hello, folks. Yeah, hopefully everyone can hear me. Yeah, so I'm with CERTS, the Clean Energy Resource Teams, and so we're partners with University of Minnesota Extension, RSDP, and provide technical assistance and support on the USDA REAP grant program as part of our work. And so this program is for any small business in kind of rural Minnesota. They do have a map on their site to figure out if that includes you, but if you're not in the metro area or not in like Duluth or St. Cloud or like one of those bigger cities, you're probably count as a rural small business. It's also eligible for or available for farms anywhere. And it's specifically for solar or energy efficiency type projects. You can also use it for like wind or other clean energy sources, but most folks are doing energy efficiency and solar. And so there is some uncertainty about the future of the program. During the Inflation Reduction Act, it was increased to be able to be 50% of the project costs. We're not necessarily anticipating that's going to stick around. Before that, this program's been around for many, many years and at 25% of project costs. And so we're hopeful that that piece of the program will continue. It is closed right now. It'll reopen at the end of June or so at the beginning of July, accepting applications for the September 30th and December 31st deadline. And it is a pretty involved application. And so it's definitely something where you want to be thinking about it and like starting to set stuff up now. And there is still the forums and the info on the website. It just has a scary big closed at the top because they're not accepting applications for the rest of this month. Next slide. And so for certs, how we help you is basically trying to reduce barriers because we know you're busy running your grocery store, running your business. And so we want to help make it more accessible for you to take advantage of this program. And so some of the things we can help with is like solar site assessments. So we can either review a bid you might have gotten from a local installer to kind of provide that second opinion, because we know it can be hard sometimes to get two or three competitive bids in rural Minnesota. And so we're not trying to sell you anything. We are not a solar installer ourselves, and so are able to kind of do that review and provide you with questions for the installer or kind of some assessment as to whether you're getting a good deal or kind of getting something that is going to work well for your business. And then alternatively, if you haven't gotten a bid from an installer, we can do a solar site assessment first, as a non-sales assessment. So we don't have specific hardware, but we kind of look at your site and your location and your energy usage and try to kind of design and check the utility rules to figure out what sort of system might be the optimum system for your specific situation. And so that's the whole approach Search tries to take, is that one-on-one support, because we know every business is a little different, and so we want to be able to cater that to your specific situation. We can then also help with general information and support with applying for the REAP grants, as well as connecting you with other incentives, grant or loan options like PACE to make sure that your project can get funded, connect you with energy auditors or with other professionals that are needed to make a project be able to go forward. I think that's all I really have to say about that. So yeah, please reach out if you want to pursue a project and we can, yeah, talk about your business and figure out what might be a good starting point. And it's also a good way to kind of get on my list. And then we're actively monitoring the evolving space at the federal landscape. And so we'll send out updates to folks once we know as far as any changes or any evolutions of this program.
Thanks so much, Colby. Just ask Colby just last minute to just jump on here, and yeah, so feel free to write his number and his info here. And also, if you go to the CERT's website, you could read all about what they're up to. But yeah, we'll also have Colby's contact info emailed out as a recap to everything. So thanks again. All right. Well, getting back to our grant writing steps. Yeah, we were we started them, and then now these are all these grants that we're looking at. So now you got to choose your grant, read the RFP. Okay, I'm eligible, and now you got your need to connect to the grant's focus area. So kind of go through some strategies here when you're refining your idea. So you've got your goals, and the funders got their goals. The funder wants to fund what they've identified as a need, probably from surveys and studies. And if you fit into that and you think, okay, well, Good Food Access says they're supporting infrastructure and equipment for healthy food. Okay, I want to do that. Um, our needs are, aligned. So use comparative language, the same, maybe some of the same language you could reflect from the grants. The grant might say, we want to fund projects that increase healthy food access and culturally appropriate food. I mean, you don't want to sound robotic, but you do want to kind of acknowledge what the grant is looking for. Use your own language. Some people use AI and all that. I don't really use that because I think what evaluators are looking for, and we could ask Jenny and other people that have been evaluating, I think you want to make it your own, right? You want to be truthful to your capacity. You don't want to reach, you don't want to sound robotic. And you're going to know your community. So if you're telling stories about your store and your community and your life and you're really getting into it. There's no AI in the world that'll be able to, replicate that, and someone evaluating will read that. So there's some cheats to it all, but you can't cheat it all the way. And yeah, you should be able to tell your story within your grant. And also mention how you couldn't do this project without additional resources. That kind of hits home to some founders like if it's kind of alluding to that you might have a lot of funds, they might think, well, do they really need this? So even just straight up saying like without additional funds, this project might not be able to happen. But we'll get to some what you want to add as a match or a buy-in later. So we got our straightforward projects here. Good Food Access is pretty much a straightforward kind of grant, and that's what the Bronson Market wrote. We need some closed door fridges. Look what we got. Look what we're gonna get. And look what they did get because they really needed this. Their energy use was not going well with the picture on the left there. They actually had an energy audit and it was really bad. They were, burning through energy. And on the right, they were, that isn't a focus area per se of the Good Food Act. Maybe it is a little bit, but to say that they're going to be saving a lot of energy, they're going to be saving a lot of cost. So that helps them with their increase, right? They increase the amount of healthy food that they're now selling because it's lasting longer. There you go. So you got to think through what they're asking, and then how is it actually going to play out in reality? We have our innovative projects where this is a mobile food truck that's going to be selling mobile market for White Earth. This was one that helped with a while back, and we're driving around to powwows and distributing food. So um, these are innovative ideas. They might take a little bit more time to prove that you have a really good foundation. But projects like these are attractive to funders, but they also want to see that you're going to be able to pull it off. So are all the partners you're working with on these really partners? And if you could write in your work plan, you saw that work plan was 25 points. That was a huge chunk of that grant. So if you could really prove in your work plan that you're going to be able to pull it off, then I think it might be worth writing an innovative project, but it's not any different than a straightforward, simple, we need a cooler. They should be equal weight at the end of the day, but these ones are a little bit more shiny to a funder potentially. With your budget, things to consider, allowable or unallowable costs. Sometimes with grants, you're not allowed to pay somebody's salary, or in some grants, you're actually not allowed to do infrastructure projects. It's only all about equipment or 5,000 or less. So there are these little rules, and the RFP and the questions and the answers and the frequently asked questions, all those sections of the grant should help you navigate through that. You've got your in-kind, your cost share, your matching fund. So that's what you're putting up. Some grants don't require a matching fund. Good Food Access does not. Some grants like the Agri, some grants do require 20, 25%. The REAP requires. So just be aware of that when you're writing it. Can you put up that amount? How much can you put up? And be discerning. What are the funds that are most relevant to your need, to your project? What is the thing that you need the most? And then you're going to have to justify everything in a narrative. So keep that in mind as well. And we'll get to a budget narrative example at the end. With your match funds, some grants like we were mentioning require it. So it could be 25%, could be more. Um, if it's not required, it could show buy-in. Like with some grants, if you have the funds and you already say like there's this roof project, we need to redo our roof. It's going to cost 140,000. Good Food Access only goes up to 75. All right, we got the money to do the rest of that. But you kind of have to like prove that, right? Like where's that money going to come from? Okay, we have it in assets, we have it in cash. So showing your match and really describing what you're putting up, I think it helps a funder because it shows that you're already investing something into this project. You could also be creative if your project's smaller, you don't really need a match per se. Hey, we got a meeting space. We own this building, or and we could have charged, the amounts that it costs to meet here, or maybe your staff or your labor, are going to volunteer hours. Say you're running the grant, but you're gonna volunteer quote unquote hours to do it, but that could be a match because that's your time and your time's worth money. Utilize your partners as well, as they might have things to offer. So we're up to the budget. Now you're thinking, okay, well, this budget looks good. Let's contact our partners and collaborators because it'll take them time to write the letters of support and get these out quickly because it might take a week or so to get it back, and you don't want to say, "Hey, can you write this letter of support within the next hour?" I think we've all gotten that email, and sometimes you can't, right? So get partners that are impressive, known community leaders, economic financial leaders like a president of your local bank, show that you're connected to your community. You're a community grocery store. So anybody that's connected to you that's through your economic development center, a lender, Philip here from West Central, he might have a good idea of who to write a letter to or for. Um, you can also choose a partner that's mutually beneficial. This might be if you're working together on the project. So if you are working together strongly on a project, there is a project where, if you're a farmer's market and you're leaving all your equipment somewhere and you're the farmer and you're the business, okay, like you're intertwining yourself with another partner here. You're going to probably want a support letter that's showing that, okay, like they're going to allow me to leave this equipment here and run this project in this way. Um, so anything that you think could be explainable probably should be. And choosing partners that you have a strong, lasting, long relationship is always good. Oh, I've known this person for 25 years. Okay, well, that's a little bit better than someone that you don't know too well, because then you have to explain more and it might come across that you don't really know them, which is fine if you don't know too many people yet, but um, you'd want to get the letters of support rather than not. Um, so here's some steps. Call the potential supporter. Tell them about your project. I'd do it in person or call because then you have that chance for them to ask questions. And then they say, okay, yeah, we could write a letter of support. Um, then you could pre-write this letter of support to save them time. A lot of people are really busy, especially if you're president of the bank or something like that. And also like some of that language is a little bit, they might not know the exact name of the fund. So here we go. We have this letter here. I probably pre-wrote this in the beginning, and then you want to leave a section open saying like just describe your relationship with us and how it could benefit our grocery store to get this project. And they might just rant about how great you are and like have this long letter, and that would be amazing, right? Um, so leave them the space to do that because that really shows that they're really in support and get their header on there, get it signed back. Having it signed is nice if they have a scanner or, it could even take a picture of it, I suppose. But the more professional, the better. Um, and they should be describing your relationship. Now you're just getting to it. You're writing that grant, so um, you could spend as long as you want getting it perfect. And some grants, yeah, take a little bit longer to write than others. And then you'll have your evaluation strategies. For a lot of these grants, you don't need too much evaluation strategy if it's just equipment and whatnot. But if you're taking pictures, if you're talking to your customers for their advice, um, the more the better. The more pictures, the better. If you're getting the equipment, show the whole day. Take and document the day of like when the equipment comes. And um, if you want to be out there in the community, just go to your local news people and say, do a story on the grant and how we got it. And you'll be the talk of the town. People come in, want to see stuff, see what's happening. You know, it's always good to be out there. If you're a business, you want to get out there, right? So, and then when you're looking at it, did you move the bar, right? At the end of the day, did you do what you were going to say you wanted to do about increasing healthy food and will your equipment allow you to do that? And then if, it's going to be a yes, so just take pictures of and show like, oh, we did that. And then you can feel good about doing everything you said you were going to do. Um, Editing at the end of the grant. You could ask colleagues to look it over. There's a lot of different technical assistance providers in the state and all over. Just reach out to your economic development centers, reach out to University of Minnesota, myself. If we don't have time, we could just kind of share the load a little bit. And there are other people out there that could help with that kind of stuff. Um, Online portals are sometimes, not always user friendly. I know that personally. And every grant also has a support number. So if you're really stuck and you need to ask a question, definitely just reach out to the name and the person. So that would be like Jenny at the Good Food Access or Maya here at the Agri. And they're always up there on the grants. All right, submit and pray, please. Let me get this funding so I could do this project. And maybe we really need this project because it's an infrastructure. The floor is leaking, the roof's caving in. I need this. Um, and a recap of the steps here: form your idea, grant search, refine your idea, budget partners, write the grants. And if you don't remember all this, it'll be up, recorded. Now, if you get the grant, it's 8 weeks later. Yeah, communicate reliably, quickly, keep your end. Having a good reputation with funders is always important because if you got a bad reputation, then that could be obviously going against your interests there. But and also just be honest if like you need to change something, like, oh, we actually found out that that piece of equipment isn't going to work for our electricity needs. So we need to go with something else. Just be upfront, honest. Sometimes you need to make an amendment. A lot of times the grantor's like, oh, okay, well, maybe just write it up in an email and that's good enough. If you don't get the grant, don't be discouraged. You defined your project idea, and you could always try again next year or maybe even with another grant that's similar. And you could always ask the grantor to meet together and to go over your scorecard to see what you could do better. So they'll give you advice there. All right. Well, we're gonna have you guys as the reviewers now, but maybe just should we do questions now, or if there are any? Were there any chat questions?
I think the only chat question was if we were going to share the PowerPoint, but I did reference that we do have all these recordings on the YouTube site, so I put that link in the chat.
Yeah, we could certainly share the PowerPoint too, so you get that into a PDF. Yeah, and we'll do questions at the end. We're pretty much on time here. So you're the reviewer. This is just an example here, but we're just gonna go 1 to 10. We're gonna keep it easy. So 10 is the best. You think that this is the the best that they could have written for this section, and one obviously is the absolute worst. So give these reviews your score. So I'll be going over this and then we'll have the polls. All right, polls up. And okay, so this is part of the Good Food Access grant for implementing the project. So this is their capacity. Maybe you're the business owner and you just want to talk about how you can implement the project. Describe the capacity. So there's their instruction there, and then you're going to be evaluating what Johnny Smith wrote below. So let's take 30 seconds here and don't get too influenced by what everybody else is writing. I know we could all see, or maybe it's just me that I could see what everybody else is writing. All right, 10 more seconds here. You got a good idea? Just put it in. Looks like we're getting Lauren, should I end it or either one of us could end it?
Either one of us can end it. Totally up to you.
All right. Well, it looks like the median number is 8. And like there are more people that got 8 and I don't know what the average would be. But so eight's pretty good. Maybe I'll just end it. Do we get an average? I don't know. But yeah, 8 is pretty good. Yeah, he's worked there for 40 years. So he definitely knows and he has the capacity and he's owned the store for 6 years. So he's getting to all I'd say all the important parts of writing this he got. I'd say maybe the reason why I didn't get a 10 was because, write in some more examples, right? And then also, other experience in community support, organizational strengths. He didn't really get into that stuff. I mean, it definitely is, an 8, I would agree, but could have gotten one more point or two by going a little bit further in depth. But let's do the next one here. All right, same thing. Capacity for, okay. So it's a little different. This is capacity for storing healthy foods. It's not capacity to run the projects. But we're going to give a little bit less time. So if you could either read fast or glance over it, or if you're not reading every word, but we want to get to, there's 10 of these. So feel free to be an evaluator in a rush, I guess. But, so we're rating 1 to 10, 10 being the highest on how they did on describing their capacity for storing healthy foods. All right. Yeah, I think so. This one maybe received slightly lower than the last one. But yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of talking about how they can store more foods. I said that right at the end really clearly, right? We will be able to sell more nutritious produce if we were able to secure the cool door coolers. So I think that was a really great sentence there. And then also the very bottom, they even say 5 to 7 days longer. They kind of knew that. All right, sharing. Should I be sharing the results?
We certainly can.
Oh, I just stopped sharing. Okay. All right, and really quickly, let's do this one. This is example 2. So this is the same exact one that we did just previously. So for storing healthy foods, what's your knee jerk just by looking at this? All right. I'm just gonna end it. I think we got, all right. Any other ones? Last 5 seconds. Yeah, so we got a lot of 2s on this one, 2 to 4s, some higher. I mean, they do clearly say some things, but for a knee-jerk evaluator too, I mean, this might be a little bit limited. So like it is good, it's straightforward, but oops. I could talk a little bit more. So it has 1,000 characters. You might want to write a few more sentences about how you're doing that. Okay.
All right. So this one's going to be on investments. So the question is, describe your organization's investments, monetary or non-monetary, into the project. If working with partners on the project, you may also include information about their investments, monetary or non-monetary. If contributing a cash match to the project, indicate the source of funding. And then you've got your example there. All right, so it looks like most people, I'd say most people said 9 or 8 or 9 points for that response, which I would agree. Some pros, they, included investments from themselves, like how they've been doing maintenance and upgrades on their own for years. And then also they talked about their community members' time that they're contributing to helping to write the grant. And then also their partnership with the Economic Development Commission and the support in that grant. And then they also included information about the entire project, even outside of what they're requesting funds for, which I think is great because that kind of let me demonstrate that they're committed like on a deeper level than just the one smaller project itself. And then they also included the bank where they got financing through. Some other things that they maybe could have talked about, like their staff time that they're dedicating to the project as well. But overall, I would agree it's a pretty good answer. All right, go to the next one. Okay, so this one is for the work plan. Complete the following table. You should include the steps you will take to successfully complete your project. For example, you might include target dates for requesting quotes, installing and testing equipment, and full launch of the equipment. Not all areas will apply to all projects. And this is the table that they had submitted.
I have a question, Jenny. Was this the only thing that they submitted as part of the work plan, or is this just the table part?
Well, so I mean, if we're looking at Good Food Access specifically, there are 2 sections for the work plan. And the first one is the table where they'll put in the table of steps.
Nice.
Okay, so it looks like I'd say maybe like, although no one gave it a 5, I would say maybe that was probably close to the average. I'll share the results there. I agree. This one, at a first glance, it looks pretty rough. There's not a whole lot of detail. They don't have very specific dates. Not that things need to be narrowed down to a single day, but at least like a month and a year would be helpful. We know things get shifted around, but having like a general idea, month to month, what's supposed to be happening would help the reviewers understand the timeline. Including the contractor that they chose would be helpful, being a little bit more specific about that. And they could also include other steps, like maybe they're still working on getting quotes or different construction periods that they have to go through before they get the equipment installed. However, if it is a very simple project, keeping 3 steps might be a better time with a better timeline, with some of those, more detailed things in there, like the specific dates. It might be sufficient with just only 3 steps. So more information isn't always better. So you want to make sure that if you're including more details, they're with value rather than just adding fluff. So just a note on that. All right, next one.
All right, so these are not rating ones. Maybe we'll just do like one more since we're kind of almost to the end here, and I don't know if we want to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat right now. We've got a few more minutes at the very end to answer any of those about anything we talked about. So this is just some budget examples. I mean, yeah, like sometimes it's okay to just be kind of simple with the budget. Let's get into a Good Food Access version 1. So we have, it says quoted here on the right. So then maybe ask if you could show your quotes, right? So you could have those quoted, but then also have, the actual quotes. You don't just say you have it quoted. And then I'd say this is a good budget. You have everything listed. You got PO numbers, you got the amounts total. And sometimes you have the match amount in here too, if you're going to do that. Here's just a quick example of a budget justification. This is sometimes the way that grants are in terms of like, okay, looking on the right, 2,500. How do you get that number? Okay, let's do the math here. 16 an hour, this and this and this. So that's how much you get to that number. So justifying your numbers, breaking everything down, and then there are, and so let's let. I don't think we have time to do any more rating, so let's just go through and just look at these. These are pretty, both of these are pretty good. I'd say this one's great. And then the next one I'd say is fantastic even. So they're talking about how they got the quotes, the reputable contractors, and everything justifying every aspect. You can't get too in the weeds with a budget narrative. I mean, this is the part where you could be analytical. This is the part you could be, really detailed, and just get really in the weeds of like, why? Why'd you choose that contractor? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do it that way? How come you need it like this? How come you need these pieces of equipment? You could really rant here. The produce, look at that third paragraph. The produce is sweating in the summer. The new heater has a humidity gauge, just get real detailed and down to it in there. And this person got their grant. So I won't say who, but it was for the full amount, 75,000. So, and it's a pretty straightforward project when you really look at it. He basically, you know, I think it was HVAC and another thing or two, but in terms of the budget, it wasn't that much. It wasn't that many items. It was one of those simple projects. It wasn't even one of those, creative, innovative projects. Um, Project impact. Yeah, our community is low income. A Census Bureau store is located in the store. This was yours, Jenny. You want to summarize this one? Or on mute, I think. Oh, I think you're on mute. Okay.
Jenny, can you unmute yourself? There you
Oh,
go.
That would be
now we
helpful.
got it.
Sorry about that. So yeah, so for project impact, there's some good things in this example. They talked about their census tract being low income and being within walking distance for customers, but maybe sharing why that's important. Are they close to subsidized housing units? Are there aging populations nearby that are living independently but need close access to food? Are there others that just don't have transportation? So explaining a little bit more in depth why that's impactful for their community. They can talk about the impact of local farmers being able to sell their products, and then also talking about like how their employment base represents the community that they serve. So just a few other things that they could also do.
Increased sales of Minnesota food. So that's another section on the good food access to increase Minnesota grown foods. So this person did a good job of saying how they're going to be replacing old equipment and expand by 10% there. That's always good. Use a comparative language, expand 10%, be detailed. You're building capacity. So that one was well written. Also, this community engagement was really well written. Just talking about everything they're doing in the community. So being detailed in some of these sections really do help. Um, and then we just kind of showed another one that was like, you got this level of detail of all the stuff they're doing. We're bagging the lunches, we're doing this, we're delivering, we're going here, we're doing that. This person could be doing that exact same thing, but nobody would know if they're not talking about it. You kind of have to brag. You kind of have to tell about all the things you do. It takes time, takes energy. So, but it's important if you're looking to try to get that grant. And here's just I think it's also a good example of a letter support. You have the header up there. Look at that. They're the executive director. That's the lead person, right? So that's the person you want to get to sign your letter of support. And they're being very detailed and talking about how your project is going to serve the community. Well, that's that's all we got. And feel free to ask more questions in the chat. We have a minute. But hey Jamie, yeah, so a lot of those grants, I saw Jamie's question there about if there are any startup costs updating, getting a grocery store going. So you could actually write Good Food Access project and not have a store yet, right? Is that correct? And then it could be building towards that, as long as you really have to prove it that you're
Yeah,
going.
I had put an answer in there too. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can absolutely be eligible. You just have to be authorized to accept SNAP before you're able to get reimbursed. So there's that little hiccup that you might have to work around.
And
But I
then
also put in a resource for the Small Business Assistant Office with Deed to see if they have other resources for small businesses too.
yeah, and then that HFFI grant, there's actually grants specifically for planning. So there's actually a grant called the planning grant. And then even with the HFFI grant, I'd look into that. That's one of the best grocery grants out there federally through reinvestment funds. And they have technical assistance grants. So you're starting a co-op, food co-op. You could get a technical assistance grant to have people on retainer that know all about co-ops that could help you day in and day out. What do you need to do next? There's a lot to this thing. People that work in those offices, so they could be on retainer essentially to help you and help you through it. So there are grants for equipment, there's a grant for planning, and there's also loans too. So you could even write, all three of those through HFFI. I think you're definitely just a grant and a loan for sure. But yeah, any other questions on grocery grants? Yeah, it's so important to brag. Wow. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope everybody writes the Good Food Access. You can get it multiple years in a row, even if you got it. And if you didn't, reach out to me, reach out to Jenny, ask more questions. And thanks so much for coming today.